inevitably, no one can control anything, right? So, but you can cultivate and nurture that own self-trust.
Dr. Luella Jonk, we are happy to connect after exchanging some emails. You mentioned enjoying the Mia Moore show, so thanks for the fan mail and a real couple recording and talking about relationships. And now here we are going to the pro who is doing this for a career. But what's also interesting about you as not only a therapist specializing in couples, unwittingly, you're going to tell us about that too, but also putting that functional medicine practice into the mix. So maybe as you introduce yourself, you could talk about that unique combining of professional skills and services.
Yes, Brad, and I should remind your audience too that I first hounded you down because of it trickled through listening to Elle Russ's podcast, or the Primal Blueprint, when she was hosting that podcast, and then reading all the Primal Blueprint, the books that you did with Mark Sisson, and I was like addicted to your animated voice on a few of those audiobooks, because that's mainly the way I take into my content. So you first appeared as a guest on my podcast, which is called I Think I Can. And Brad, I've always been super interested in, nutrition, exercise, and taking care of our bodies. But I also realized that, the mind is just one organ of the body, but I was also very fascinated with the mind. And because of the mind, the brain, they say the brain-gut connection, the mind-body connection, mind-soul, connection. I mean, I just, that's why I went from, being a psychotherapist to applying to the Institute of Functional Medicine to see if I could get my practitioner's certification as a functional medicine practitioner, and put myself through about 2 or 3 years of hell to, I felt like a fish out of water being with all these MDs and NDs and NPs and, psychiatrists and but I made it on the other side, and feel very fortunate to have that certification, as well as my being a registered psychotherapist.
So that seems extremely rare to be able to engage with someone who has both those certifications. And do you actually intermix those? Is that possible when you have a client?
You know what? That's a really good question. And I tried, but it's something I didn't really think about before embarking in the functional medicine. And I really tried, in the sense that I would have my new clients fill out like, a current symptom questionnaire. It's called a CSQ. And of course the ACE questionnaire, the adverse childhood experiences. And, they would be okay with the adverse childhood experiences as one of the forms I'd have them fill out. But then when it got to the current symptoms questionnaire, and I was asking them about their gut health and, what the amount of vegetables and meat and stuff like that. That's when I could kind of see them going, and that was a condensed form. At first I had them all fill out like a 45-minute functional medicine, standard intake form. And a lot of them were kind of going, wait a minute, what is going on here?
I just want to complain about my lazy ass husband. What are we doing here?
Yeah, exactly. So not everybody bought into it as much as I thought. Some people were going, this is great. But then that was unfortunately about 10% of my clientele. So, reluctantly, I sort of had to just kind of go, well, for those that are interested, and then some people would see functional medicine practitioner on my website, and they would come to me just for that, an
Mm.
autoimmune disease or whatever they might have. So unfortunately, I sort of did have to separate it.
All right.
Um, but I still like. I always feel with the knowledge that I learned from that certification, like I feel so like such an advocate. Like I go into my physician's office and I'm just like, so why aren't we checking the vitamin D again? Like I just feel, and then I get into the ApoB and like, because like yeah, my cholesterol, I sort of have this um yeah, high cholesterol, and it's genetic, and so I'm asking them all the details, and they're like, I don't even know what that is.
Right.
So, but like, so I feel really, really good about that. I'm thinking if I save my life or one of my family's life, even if I can't incorporate it into my practice as much as I want to, it's well worth the time.
Well, it occurs to me that a lot of the subclinical uh, conditions that fall in the realm of functional medicine have to have a psychological component that's extremely relevant. And in fact, a lot of those are what are driving the quote unquote chronic fatigue or another thing.
Exactly, exactly. Like, so, yeah, I feel very empowered, I guess you could say, when I'm speaking to, someone who's not taking care of their body, and then I can give them all the like the ugly details about what that is doing to them, and it's for example, like I had a young female surgeon in who was, complaining about anxiety and burnout. Like she was still a resident at this point. And yeah, sure enough, she had some really terrible gut issues. And yeah, like I mean, it was like I could talk her lingo, and so she finally did get it, like about the whole burnout piece and how if you don't start taking care of yourself, you're not going to be able to take care of any other person. And so, speaking to women in that way as well, like from a very knowledgeable standpoint when it comes to nutrition and exercise and sleep and doing some sort of meditative or yeah, stress releasing exercise, you know that's gonna make a huge change in how you work, how you treat your family, like how you raise your children, how your intimate relationships are, right? I mean, and then the whole the hormones, like helping women through perimenopause and menopause, and speaking to couples about and like women not having enough, sex drive, and men, right? If they're overdoing it as well with the low testosterone. I think you suffered from that at one point, or was it Mark? But yeah, I mean, that's very, very common too for men that are going through burnout and stuff like that. So it's, yeah, I absolutely still use it in my practice, but not everybody is, it's just like in the health and wellness field, like that you work out, like we, even with having that knowledge, it doesn't necessarily mean they're going to change anything, but at
Mm.
least at least they're aware of, how stress can affect the gut, and how what you eat is going to affect your ability to hold attention, and um yeah, and whatever, achieve more patience in your life, and regulating anger, and um yeah, I mean, if you feel good in your body, you're just a happier person. When you're a happier person, you're a better dad, and you're a better partner, and you know so I mean, how can you not separate those things? But
Well, yeah, that's a thousand-year-old insight from Aristotle and Plato and so forth. But we tend to we tend to like to separate and isolate, especially in the disease care model. I noticed you said especially women need to take care of themselves, and our friend John Gray highlights this situation in modern life where the female is now asked to transcend her traditional role and the prominent biological drive of the female to be the nurturer caretaker. And now the modern female is charged with being everything to everyone. And that's why he contends we have record rates of depression, anxiety, exhaustion, burnout. So maybe we could focus on that issue for a bit, and perhaps your feelings on some of the John Gray insights are, I guess, controversial, or not everyone agrees, but they resonate strongly to me, where he's talking about, culture is evolving, where we don't have to be in these fixed and rigid roles of old times. And that's a good thing for society, that the women are not making the meals and having babies, and that's it. However, we have to negotiate, because we still have these baseline biological drives of both the male and the female that are now getting intertwined.
Exactly. And, I interviewed John Gray as well. And I remember that at the, you know what, like, and I'm also a Gottman's couples therapist as well. I was trained in the Gottman therapy, which I think a lot of people love. And I think I even heard you speak with Mia about that in one of your episodes. So you know what, like, you bring up an interesting point. Like, I feel like the Gottmans are excellent at the communication piece, like when it comes to couples. And let's face it, I mean, most of the couples that enter my room, that's the first thing that everybody says, right? Like, I pick up the phone and it's like, yeah, we'd like to make an appointment, and I'm like, okay, what's going on? We just don't know how to communicate. I mean, it's like the number one thing that any couple will say. So the Gottmans are great at that. But what I like about John Gray's work too, though, is that he, to me, brings in more of the, like, what one might call spirituality in a sense, or energies, and how he talks about, female or feminine sexual essence, and, a masculine sexual essence, and how, I almost feel like it's sort of like the pendulum has swung from, the classic 50s and 60s, like, was it Joan Cleaver, like Leave It to Beaver, sort of like, housewife, where, I mean, very submissive, you were a housewife and you didn't really have a chance to work outside of the house, where it swung all the way towards, the 70s. And I think that's where John Gray, like, kind of did most of his work in the 70s and 80s, and where, it was a lot more feminism, like, or feminine movement, I would say, like burning of the bras, etc. And now it was too, and then it went too far. And then you have, both partners working out of the home, women slapping on their red lipstick, blazer, and high heel shoes, and walking into the corporate world. And in the corporate world, let's call it, like, they have to bring out their badass energy, which is more of a masculine energy, like, let's get this shit done, and it's sort of like checking off all the boxes, and a lot of doing energy, and so all day long they're in that doing energy, getting their shit done. And then when they come home, they're still in that masculine, sexual essence, or masculine energy, if you want to call it. And they're starting to, like, telling their partner to get this and that done. And what would we, that masculine energy is also what we call a mothering energy. And in terms of, like, no one really sees it as a mothering, like, mothering being a masculine energy, but think of it, if you're mothering your children, you're telling them, this, that, this, do that, and to get this done, and book this swimming lesson. And again, you're in that badass, let's get these things done. We, you know, and, but if you start doing that to your partner, like he's looking for, where's my wife? Like, where's the woman? Like, where's the feminine energy? But she's just spent all of day in that. So in the masculine, so it's to just make that switch right away can be super difficult. So what women can do instead is just remind themselves, like, you can do both, but you have to take care of yourself. Like, you have to nurture yourself, because again, they're stepping in like to the house and they're doing. And rather than just sort of being in that like goddess energy, that rest and digest, that relaxation, that receiving energy sort of thing. And, yeah, because they're just too busy doing, and like, you can do both, but you just have to remind yourself that you do have to give yourself that grace and take care of yourself. And, yeah, so.
Yeah, the assignment, one of my favorite shows, if I will say on my own podcast, is me compiling all the different insights from 4 John Gray interviews and then just spitting it out. And so the female is obligated to, come down off that kick-ass competitive male side, as John Gray calls it, and, for example, allow someone to take care of them. The man's deepest biological drive is to be the hero in the story and the protector and the champ who's got this. The man's favorite words to say is, "I got this." And then the desired response is, "Thank you, you're awesome," rather than what John Gray's number one rule or suggestion to the females: don't nitpick. If the man says, "I got this," don't say, "Why are you using that type of epoxy on the rain gutter? That's not going to be waterproof." That's where I guess the communication falls apart, is when we try to bust out of these roles because of culture, and what we really want deep down cannot be washed away with the lipstick and the high heels and the business suit.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
So how does the female come down at the end of a busy, stressful, hectic day? She wants to vent, and the man's obligation at that point is to listen intently without offering advice or critique. And that, in doing so, the female will vent out her her energy, and then be able to relax and connect and come down off that male side and nurture her female side. I love it. And then why is it so hard for the man to sit there and listen intently without offering advice or criticism? It's because the man wants to be the hero in the story and say, "I got this. Here's what you should say to your boss. Tell him to blank, blank, blank," instead of just listening. And the advice is out there. I've dispensed it with great energy. Here I am going off again. And then the very next day, we kind of drift back into this, familiar pattern driven by our deepest biological drive. So we have to kind of think our way out of it today.
Well, exactly. And like, so we have, we have the biological side of us that's always going to want to come back to neutral, right? But like, if we're pulled too much in one of these other energies, it's I think what you're saying, it's hard enough as it is, like on a biological, physiological level, for a man and a woman to have a effective communication without a woman being in the badass energy all day, and maybe the man, but see, that's a point. If she's able to sort of take that hat off at the end of the day and just be able to receive, get into that receiving energy. In other words, like, she might not be as reactive when the man defaults to the problem solving, right? And But if she's really in that masculine energy and she comes home and she goes right into that conversation, then yeah, it's going to be real, like two heads butting, right? Because she's in the masculine, he's in the masculine, and then they're going to go at it. But I know, like, I mean, it's like it's a woman's, part of their essence to just like there's so much emotion. All they want is connection. All they want is their partner to hear them and just say that, right? I think that's what John Gray says. Like men, like I know I like his like short little tips. He says, just say I hear you. Like yeah, and like men are just like writing down these tips, right? Okay,
Yeah.
I gotta remember that. I hear you. Okay, when I walk away, I just say I hear you. Okay.
Tell me more is another one.
Oh, right,
Tell me more.
right. Yeah. Yeah.
And then I guess we should balance the conversation over on the male side now. And so the modern male is charged with being all things to all people, and we want them to be sensitive, vulnerable, communicative, conversational, and so forth. And so we want the man to share his feelings rather than be that stoic person who comes in the door after a long day at the factory, sits down, pops open a beer, and waits for dinner to be served, etc. And that is definitely cultural progress as well, away from this stereotypical macho man who likes sports and cigars and working hard and is not much for sharing feelings. However, again, we're pulling away from that deepest biological drive of the male, which is to be in control, to protect, to conquer outside challenges of the world, and then protect one's, loved ones. And so once the male starts getting into an emotional feelings bared conversation, they are diminishing their testosterone and they're getting into their female side, which can tend to make them feel unwhole and off balance. Their estrogen is elevating, their testosterone is suppressing. So his advice, which this is where I've floated this to other professionals, and this is where a little bit of controversy kicks in, I think. He wants the male to be calm, cool, and collected at all times, like a kung fu master. In other words, manage and regulate, control one's emotions at all times, which kind of precludes one from being completely vulnerable and sensitive and open and chatty and telling how, my feelings were hurt when you were talking to Gary too long at the party over there in the corner. That's not what the female wants or needs, and that's not what works for the male, but we're kind of asking the male to be Mr. Sensitive Boy as well as Mr. Badass, as always, throughout millennia.
Yeah. Well, yeah, you bring up a really interesting conversation, and like, I mean, you articulate that really well. Like, I don't think, any guy in my office has really described it like that, which shows me that, you have been listening to these experts and you see it as being a challenge. But, I think, see, this is where I think John and Julie Gottman are really excellent too with the communication piece. Like, this is where tone of voice, body language, I think becomes really important. What words you're choosing, etc. So, and in that sense, I don't think we have to lose our, like we can stay in our masculine energy, like as a man, and still communicate in a way that, like you're going to receive the respect that you need. Like, in other words, I mean, if you're the type of guy that, let's say, I'm just trying to think, like, let's say you've been burnt like crazy in past relationships. Let's say you've been cheated on like multiple times or something like that, right? So you're walking in like that party and your partner is chatty Cathy and likes chatting it up with all the guys, sort of thing. How do you communicate that to your wife without sounding like, you're whining or way too vulnerable or overly demanding? And I think a lot of it is just your choice of words. But like, I think too, it's like, I think boundaries, like its standards and values, is important on both sides. Like, I mean,
Uh,
like, first of all, like you have to think that that man has no, like, to me, he doesn't have any right to tell his wife who and who not to talk to, but he can say, um, I'm working on this trust issue. You know how hard this is for me. Uh,
mm,
and it would just really help me, um, like to include me in that conversation or something like that. If you do choose to have a conversation with whatever Jack over there, like, I mean, if you could just either include me.
I think it was Gary.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's super interesting. And it again brings to mind maybe some potentially controversial insights. And one of them that I have held strong throughout my life is, now we're asking the couple to provide what the community used to provide. And I contend that males, whatever age, if you have a good support group of male friends where you can talk through the
Yeah.
important matters of life and relationship and feelings and moods and preferences, if you can work things out to where you bring your A game all the time. And in this exact example of, this hypothetical example where I said, what if the guy says, oh, my feelings were hurt when you talked to Gary over there in the corner? And John Gray says, quote, when you say my feelings are hurt, that's death to a relationship. Because the
Exactly.
female that's not what she's looking for, and that's not what she needs deep down. So if I can imagine getting my A game together with my boys and talking through the multiple offenses of people cheating on me so many times that now I'm insecure and hypervigilant, and I get my feelings hurt really easily when my new girl goes over in the corner and talks to Gary for too long. I need to work that shit out. Arguably, again, you can go ahead and write us an email if you dispute this, but I feel like the best way is to have my go-to source that is not my partner so that I come to the party that night with my A game all the way, and I am, disciplined and resilient and love myself enough that I'm not going to get triggered or sensitive when, a hypothetical girlfriend partner is talking a long time to Gary over there in the corner. Now, if you have a rough go and a rocky relationship in the first place when you head out to the party, then who knows what all kinds of things are going to bust up. But that charge to me, that assignment from John Gray to be calm, cool, and collected and manage and regulate your own emotions. And if you do have emotional dysregulation, his assignment is to go off and do testosterone boosting activities, such as, you can list a whole bunch of them. It's conquering challenges that you enjoy. I'm going to go blow off some steam in the gym, or running on the trail, or tinkering with my motorcycle in the garage, and then coming back to the relationship whole, rather than getting into these nitpicking arguments, which on some level might satisfy the female need to connect through arguing. That's a common theme that I see. But on the male side, it just usually destroys that male energy of wanting to be the hero and the guardian and the protector in the relationship.
Yeah. Yeah. I'll comment on a couple of things. Like, I would just like, I'd be one thing, like, yeah, I think guys are better than this, but like sometimes I find when women, like when women have a lot on their minds, they flock together. They're like just like birds, right? Like they flock together and they talk, and that's almost like a therapy session for them. But like I find sometimes girlfriends can give really bad advice, right? Just like family
thought you were
members
gonna.
too.
I swear I thought you were going to say good. So this is getting interesting now. So,
No, because you gotta think, like, those girlfriends love you, and your family loves you, and all they want is for you to be happy.
um,
So they might just like say, you deserve to be happy. You just serve. You like, don't let that. Don't let him, and da 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 da. Da. but that's not professional advice. But the guys, I mean, one thing I really love about guys is sort of like they just don't let like little, I don't know, like they really don't let the little things like really affect. I mean, I kind of give this example in the room all the time, like how like if a woman's girlfriend, let's say, cheated on her husband, and your standards are like, there is like no infidelity in my life, and so like, I mean, you would drop the girlfriend almost like, you know like whatever, a hot cake, right? It's like, whereas a guy would be like, if your wife would find out you're going out for a beer or a golf game with Joe, who recently just, cheated on his wife, Mia might be like, what the, like, how can you do that? And you'd be like, I don't know, he's a good guy. And, he's a pretty good guy. Like, and he, like, I love golfing with that, like,
Yeah.
and it's true. Like, I mean, like, you don't sweat, like, what you would consider, like, it's not like you don't consider it important, but it's just sort of like, you see the person for who they are, not really for the deed that they've done, and you kind of, but women are can be really catty that way, right? They just like, it's unfortunate, but they can be. So if yeah, so maybe your buddies would give you some really good advice. I don't know, because I'm not a guy and I haven't hung out with them to know what kind of advice, they would give. But men do seem to be more stable that way. Like, they're not going to tell you to drop her in a second. They're going to be like, I think they would be more encouraging like that.
It depends how good of a friend we're talking
Yeah.
about. But generally, the people who have had the biggest impact on my life and I'm closest with are straight shooters. And so if I need to hear from an outside source, Brad, don't be such a wuss. Quit being a crybaby or emotionally overly fragile.
Yeah.
That stuff can set you straight really nicely to where you might be heading back into a relationship interaction saying, hey, I want to say I'm sorry. And I take ownership for being sensitive, insecure, whatever. And, you can get boosted by your support circle. And similarly, I think the female can bring some of her relationship challenges to the female support group and then come back more whole than engaging in the number one warning, again from John Gray: no nitpicking is allowed, because that will destroy the man's desire to be the king and the protector and the hero in the story. And so if all the nitpicking can get finished at the book group meeting, then we can go back and maybe get a perspective that, life ain't so bad. Everybody's in this together, and we're your friends are also struggling with your husband's unwillingness to do the dishes or what have you.
Yeah. And the other piece that you mentioned, which I really love, is like, and I try to really speak about this a lot, is this, rather than feeling like, I don't know if I can trust her. You're right. Like, inevitably, no one can control anything, right? So, but you can cultivate and nurture that own self-trust, meaning that, I trust that I'm going to be okay. Like, honestly, I mean, the way I say it all the time is like you'll never control her. So if she does, whatever, break your trust, or is commits infidelity of any sort, emotional or anything else, then you have to trust that you're going to be okay no matter what, right? There's a lot of self-love that can be practiced, and I trust that I will be okay, and I trust that I'm worthy of a better relationship, right? One that really respects me and honors me as a person. Do you want to let her go? No, but you, it's a true statement. I always tell my clients that you will be okay. Like, think about all the other things you've gone through in life that you never thought you'd make it out on the other side, but you did, all 4 feet on the ground, like a cat, like, like you were tossed in the air and you actually landed and you were okay. So you did it once, you'll be okay again. Does anybody want to go through that? No, but I'd rather know for certain than live with a life of anxiety, hounding her all around the party because you're scared about her possibly, and that's where boundaries and standards, to me come into play too. It's sort of like, I love myself enough that I'm going to hold true to the standards and boundaries that I have for myself as a person, like, so, but, that whole infidelity piece is not an easy, like, topic for a lot of people. Some say, I think a lot of people would like to say that, that's like, someone who does that to, like, that's definitely like, I'm out. That's a hard out. I'm done. But what I feel is really the truth. It's usually like couples that have been together for a long time, like we're talking 20, 25 years, maybe 30 years in a relationship. You don't just kick that to the curb easily, and then usually it's like, I think of all the couples that I've had, I think, you know, there was maybe 10% that did end it after infidelity, like that, and it was a better thing. Like, I mean, one of the partners was sort of a deadbeat, and it was good that, it happens, sort of thing. But most of the time, it's just a chance to kind of take a closer look at the relationship and and change.
So, what's it like on the front lines? I mean, you're seeing a lot of couples come in. I guess a certain percentage of them are in crisis. I wonder how it affects your mental health and well-being. And it seems like an incredibly rewarding and important career, but also potentially draining. And then I guess you could even talk about what some of the trends that you're seeing and, what's going on in the State of the Union with couples. You're in Canada, and I assume we're probably dealing with the same stuff as we are in other developed countries, and correct me otherwise.
Yeah, no, I do. Well, I mean, I say North America, like along with our diet, I think I think we're not doing as good a job in our mental health as perhaps Europe would be. That's the only, Central Western Europe is the only kind of comparison I can make, just because I have some family members and colleagues there. And like, when I think about, like, this is a whole nother topic, but like the amount of suicides, and especially male suicides, it's a real crisis. And it's like, that's super, super sad, right? And but I don't think they have that extent, the percent, like the stats. I don't have any stats to tell you, but I'm almost, just from conversations, it's not as much, for sure. People don't have like a therapist like 24/7 in Europe as they do here. I think there's a whole bunch of factors relating to that, and I think, we're not in that do energy in Europe as well, so they have more time to cultivate their relationships. Like, they're not working 24/7. So I don't think it is as much across the ocean there, but in otherwise though, like, I'd say, well, first of all, you asked, how do I deal with it? And what can I say? I take I take care of my body. Like I exercise a little bit in the morning, like a 20-minute thing, just for strength and flexibility. I take a good hour walk every evening at the end of the day with my dog, and that's a great thing for me. A lot of contemplative thought, whether that's prayer or just thinking or whatever it is in the morning as well. Like a good morning routine is there's no better thing. Um and and then yeah, like I would say most couples come to me, like as I said, it's sort of like communication problem, but it's really like both of them are just not taking care of themselves enough, and not building enough time for connection. Like it's, like when you think about the amount of time when you first started to date somebody, or you were in the honeymoon phase or whatever it is, um, the hours that you would spend together, like just talking, getting to know each other. Like if couples could maintain even half of that throughout their marriage, maybe even a quarter, you know, like, well, I think the Gottmans say, 10 minutes of connection a day is all you really need.
Mm.
We wouldn't be in this crisis that we are right now. So I think it's just like you're just not like maybe women being more in their masculine energy, more of the do, and the guys just trying to, like, you know, yeah, take care of their family, and just not enough time for family, not enough time for each other. And that's, I think, is the biggest issue. And then, anxiety. A lot of people will come to me just on an individual basis saying, they're ridden with anxiety. And of course, someone who's ridden with anxiety is not going to be a good partner, right? So,
And where's that emanating from as we realize that the increase is severe these days? What do you think?
why is it becoming?
Yes. Why is the anxiety so prevalent these days?
Well, I mean, yeah. I mean, on an individual, like a deep level, I feel a lot of comparison. Um, like social media is and the internet is just wonderful for so many things, but it's too, like, think of it, Brad, like when you were in your bedroom, when you were like, 13 or 15 or whatever, at least, well, I think you're about the same age as I am, but
There were no mobile devices, put it that way, back then.
yes, you didn't know what Jack, Jerry, Steve were doing. And now, like, I just, like, that breaks my heart when I think about like these poor, like, young boys, maybe, in their bedroom, seeing what all their friends are doing on social media, but they're not there. They're not there. And heaven forbid that, you're not a jock in the school. Like, I think that's another way that the school system could do a much, much better job, is celebrate those boys that are more creative, in the arts, whether it's music, drawing, theater or whatever it is. But I know from my own two boys that, like, one was a complete jock, and I feel like, friendships galore. The other one was a little bit more quiet and more creative, more arts, and you're not as Mr. Popular. And so I think that's one way. And then women always with the body image, right? So, like, in terms of anxiety, I think that's the root cause, is just a lot of it anyway. It's just knowing, you're always thinking you should be doing better. You should be better. You should be at this age, doing this at this age. Everybody's shooting on themselves way too much, I guess. It's probably a good way of summing it up. Like, we're all doing it, and when we just realize that, we're perfect just the way we are, we don't have to or be anybody. It would help a lot. So, I think,
Yeah, I guess build in opportunities to get away from that stuff, and
yeah.
I I I notice that I enjoy exercise in my whole life, and part of that enjoyment comes from I'm able to disengage from the the digital world and the cognitive world, and I'm doing something with my body, and so it's like inherently healthy for that reason, of course, among other ones. But now we're obligated to use all this discipline to not, go overboard on things that don't support our long-term mental health or physical health.
Oh yeah, like yeah, and yeah, same. Like, and I don't know, like I almost kind of feel blessed that that I've always been a lover of exercise because it's such a great way of releasing that stuck energy, or that anxious energy, whatever it might be. Like, I mean, it's just sort of like when I talk to some of my clients and I ask what they do, and in terms of exercise or any sort of movement, and they say, I'm just like, oh, what? Like, like, I mean, like if, I mean, I remember even COVID, and I live in a cold part of Canada. Like,
Mm.
like I didn't care what the weather was. Like, I made sure I went outside every single day, right? Like, I mean, it's the least that you can do for your body to get some fresh air. And yeah, and that's another thing for me. It's sort of people taking responsibility,
Mm.
for their mental health, for their anxiety, rather than saying, okay, this is why, whether it's parental influence, whether it's societal influence, there's so many reasons why, maybe they are where they are right now, but we all have a choice every single day when we
Mhm.
wake up, right? And I know Mark is a huge believer of this as well. Like, I mean, it's never been it has never been easy for anybody. It's, but I think it really begins with self-love. Like, it just, a lot of it is self-love. Like, I love myself so much. I'm going to nurture my body. I'm going to take care of my body. I'm going to like, carve time out during the day for my for exercise, for meditation or quiet time or whatever that might be. Like, and it's not selfish to do that, right? Like, it's there's no better way of spending your time, as far as I'm concerned. And yeah, so it begins with self-love and knowing you're worth it.
That's interesting that you took us here from a question about couples, because it seems as though a lot of the problems are coming from, outside forces. I mean, we all know that every couple once upon a time was in love and then doing great and connecting and spending tons of time. But then if the layers of stress start to stack up, of course it's gonna trash the relationship. And maybe we can, instead of butting our heads against the wall so much, take care of the individual person, and again, bring your A game to the relationship and see how that goes for you, rather than arguing about the same shit over and over, because
Exactly.
nothing's evolved, including the high level of stress that the individuals are under, separate and distinct from the relationship.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I know, like, and I talked about teenagers comparing themselves, but really, adults are doing it all the time too.
Mm.
Like the neighbor down the street, or whatever. Well, yeah. So it's like, stay in your lane. I always say,
That's
just
that.
stay in your lane, and
Yeah. Let
yeah.
let stuff go, people. I mean, I think there's some aspects of chronological aging that are not as much fun. I don't have as much resilience as an athlete. I am getting injured or tired, whatever. But some of the things that feel like rewarding to me are having a improved perspective and being able to let things go, realizing that we're all marching toward the finish line, and so we sure as
Mhm.
hell not better not waste any time now. Working through anxiety and frustration in our head when we have the potential to let it go and leash up the dog and go for that hour walk, no matter what.
Exactly. Yeah, and you as an athlete probably know that better than anybody. Just like the whole idea of staying in your own lane, like you're not looking at your well, like I think there's room for competitiveness when it comes to sports or card games, like and things like that, but never be competitive with yourself. That's the problem. I think a lot of people just
Well, we attach our self-esteem to the outcome, and having competitive intensity in life is allowed. It's part of many people's basic personality nature. You can't suppress it, but having that ability to let things go and to compete for the sake of personal development and the enjoyment of the process, that's when you get all the rewards. And when we're just obsessed with outcomes, that's when we struggle and suffer and get discouraged and take a hit to our self-confidence, self-esteem. And I think we're socialized to behave this way. That's what we're trained to do, is to measure your self-worth by your degrees on the wall and your accolades on the social media and all that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and age brings wisdom when it comes to that. Like honestly,
So,
I mean, I know that I could have been the therapist that I am right now, or the coach that I am right now, with like not half the stuff that I learned. That's for sure. It's been my own life experiences, and so like, did I need all the certifications and degrees? No, but it's sort of like, I mean, I think for your audience, I'd like them to think about like moving like ahead, like if we're gonna move ahead and change the way we're gonna do things. There's really two ways of going, like with any action that you do. You could either lead like with love, or you can lead with fear. And I think a lot of us have been unfortunately conditioned to lead with fear. Like if you don't do X, then this is going to happen. If you don't do that, then this is going to happen, rather than what is my heart telling me to do? What's my soul telling me to do? Like what's my gut instinct telling me to do? What's my intuition telling me to do? And that's like, it's that feeling that people have to start like feeling, rather than thinking. Instead of being in their heads all the time, it's sort of like, what feels good for me right now, like honestly. So yeah.
Nice. I love it, Luella. Thank you.
You're welcome.
How can we follow your work or connect with you?
Well, on Instagram, that's for me is just sort of fun. It's just sort of like whatever. But it's just Luella Jonk. It's the J is pronounced as a Y. So, and there's no other.
Yes.
No, that's okay. There's no other Luella.
There's no other. No one's had that name.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
good. Yeah.
So you can find me easily there. And then Facebook, again, it's Luella Jonk, and that's where I usually do most of my longer posts.
Nice.
So yeah, my website, luellajonk.com. So
all right, people.
I do video, distance. Yeah.
Nice. Okay. Good stuff. Thank you, Luella Jonk.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. So
go connect with her.
A little bit of Spanish into that, right?
Yeah.
Dutch. Yeah.
Yeah, a little flavor. Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening, everybody. Good stuff. And now go honor those assignments. Take care of yourself first and foremost. Dum.